I was going to say a few words before, but in Portuguese, but I can do it in English because the talk is in English. So this talk is a recollection of some episodes and a reflection of some episodes that happened with me, that happened with other people. The idea here is not linear, and I think you can grasp a bigger meaning, not only with this title, but with all the small episodes that I've experienced with other people as well. So, it's September 2017. I'm on a bus. It's night. I've been to Porto, and I was making a game jam. I was part of a game jam, making a game in Porto, and I live in Lisbon. If you guys are not from here, Porto is really far away. And the game jam provided a bus. We went there. The game I made with other people, we didn't finish. It was kind of rubbish, but that's okay. And part of the talk is about that. And most of us at the bus, we were tired. So the bus went there, and in the final day we were coming back at night, completely tired, in silence. The light was blue, and someone breaks the silence and says something about why they like making games. And since I've been researching that thing, I asked directly to the person, why do you make games? Because it's a question that's really important to me. The person says, it's a girl, she says, I don't really like to make games. It's not really about the games, it's about connecting with people. I like to make things, can be games, can be anything else, but they need to be attractive. And I want people to connect with them and them to connect with people. My creations need to have a relation with the people. I care about the connection. And so that was something that happened in that bus. I'll come back to that bus, but I'd like to read you a note. This note, I think I transcribed it. With this slide, it's a bit hard to read, but I think I can manage. This note was not written by me. I will explain more about the note, but here it goes, and I translated it. I have an idea. This idea is more of a feeling, a mood, that I want to imprint. The process is to translate into that medium, into a game. It flows through how a sensation is discovered from the interaction with the virtual world. I don't care about creating a video game. I care about making good art. Whatever you want to call it. These discussions don't interest me. Playing within the rules is not a restriction. Ideas ask for something else, something more, and you shouldn't respect that. And this note was written by a designer that quit the game he was making. I actually liked the game he was making, he just quit it. And this note was written to himself. And why would someone write a note to himself? I mean, you're the person that you spend most time with. Why would you do that? We'll get back to that. But so, here's an episode. Goodbye and hello. So I was working in 2015 in a game that was a really good product. We believed in that product, but there were a series of complications. And one of the things that I remember mostly was asking a question, why? And let me give you why I asked that question. I was doing crunch. We were doing a lot of crunch. We had a lot of deadlines. And I remember once that we stayed late on Friday doing that game. I was a programmer at that game. I was working with another programmer, And it was Friday night, and people said goodbye, and we kept working. And then it was morning on Monday, and they said hello, and we were still working. And something hit me, like I really got angry at myself. I mean, why was I making that? Because we needed to deliver, like we had a milestone, we needed to deliver the game. But why? Why would someone inflict that upon himself? Why was I allowing myself to inflict such pain upon my body? Why was misery part of the daily cycle of making games? Another episode. This one is goodbye and goodbye. So that happens a few months after all the sacrifice, all the bullshit. And that's the theme of the talk, all the bullshit that we endured. People that were once my friends, they stopped being my friends. I had a friend of mine that I threatened to sue, and a friend of mine threatened to sue me. There was a problem with asset copying from other games. There was a huge series of problems. It was something that I don't like to remember, but it happened. And a game that we spent a lot of time working on, midway through that process, we stopped working on it. So again, why? Why was I doing so much crunch? Why was I inflicting so much pain? And why couldn't it work out? Like, why did it need to end like that? This is the title of a video that Jonathan Blow, the creator of one of the creators of The Witness, the mind behind it, posted on YouTube. And at one time, if I'd see that title, I'd be shocked, but not right now. This is a video on how to deal with depression, and there's sort of a disconnect, like that happened like just last month. Sort of a disconnect, because you think of like the great designers as heroes, of people that are invulnerable, people that have a focus, and then you get like one of the best designers alive right now making a video on how do you cope with depression. And so part of this relationship, the relationship between these 3 episodes is about being broken. And I started, like last year, I started researching the idea of depression and game development. And one of my favorite talks is by Davey Wreden, the creator of the Stanley Parable. I don't know if you play that game. So he's paid to make a talk to talk about the creative process, and he doesn't talk at all about either games or creativity. He talks about why do you make games. And you should definitely check that. It's not the title. That's just a cue for me to remember. But the idea was, why do you spend so much time making games? Because it's hard, and maybe you are making games because you are dealing with something. Maybe because you need validation. Maybe because you confuse love with admiration. Maybe you have a lot of traumas and you are trying to use your work, which is miserable and toxic, as therapy, which makes you more miserable and more toxic. And with that, we jump to an episode that happened like 2 weeks ago. Actually, last week. I changed the slide because I wanted to include that. A friend of mine, which is a fellow designer, we were having drinks, and he launched the game a few years ago. And I asked him, how long did you stay in depression after launching the game? And he dodged the question. Like, he really dodged the question. He started talking about the publisher, he started talking about the market, about other games, and I didn't ask that. I asked how long. And he knew that I knew that he was dodging the question, so he kept talking more. But the thing is, he never told me he was depressed. I knew. How would I know that? So game designers, a lot of them are bad at their jobs. Some of them are bad people, but most of them, they are bad at being people. And you have to understand why. It's sort of something that the job itself pushes you to. So you are a kid, you start programming, like you go into a path, you are an artist, you start drawing in your notebook or something like that. If you are a designer, you have a lot of ideas that you have in your drawer, a lot of PowerPoints, a lot of GDDs, and you have this notion, this idea that you can do it, but you actually don't have any resources to do it. So you will try to seek out people that will do, because you are not a programmer, you are not a modeler, you are not a sound designer, you don't know how to do anything, but you have the idea. And you will be tempted at some point to think that your ideas are as valid as anyone else's work. So you make a level, you plan a level, and in your mind it's as valuable as actually someone modeling the level, because you're the idea guy, right? That's what you do. That's a problem, because at some point as well, when people give you ideas, you will feel threatened, because you are the guy who gives ideas. If you are the guy who gives ideas, someone else gives an idea, like you are purposeless. You have no place here, so you try not to listen, become manipulative. You become a control freak. That's where the job pushes you to, but even that's something that may stay with you in your career. You might tank a game and it's never your fault. It's the market, it's the prices, it's the platform, it's the programmers, it's the artists, it's never you. It's a hack, it's anything. Like, it's not you. You will never be the guy that fucked up. But when it's about the game, it's your game. Like, it may be a team of 10 people or 100 people, it's your game. You sort of become an asshole, because you have to. And good designers, and you become bad at your job as well, because if you cannot communicate, if you cannot listen to other people, how can you design anything? But and you are showcasing your game, and the player goes, I don't understand this, and the guy goes, no, it's like that. Like, the player knows you should be silent. You become bad at your job, and also very broken. And this is why, in retrospect, I think, why was I doing that, and why do I see so many depression-related talks about game dev? It's really hard not to fall into that. And if you take a step back and look into that, you may become a better professional. But also think about this. If you need other people, and you are an asshole, let's do a diagram then. A Venn diagram, sorry. You have a circle, and you have another circle. In the middle, you have people who suck, and people who are very good at talking to others. So you actually, if you are really good in that path, you become a sociopath. Really, like, think about that. Last year I made a talk here at GDC Game Dev Camp, not GDC, which was about game jams and recurrence. So if you are not familiar with the concept of recurrence, it's sort of having a box, and inside the box you have the same box. Or imagine you are in a room like this, you open the door and you get to the same room. So you can play with scale. Physics in a bit, like when you get to universal laws and patterns, if something is true in one context, it must be true in another. So my talk was about what you can learn with a game jam in just 2 days or 3 days or a week, that is a lesson for the rest of your life, and something that could lead to you learning that in 5 years. Actually, you could only lose an hour or 2 just to have an epiphany. I really believe that, because that happened to me a couple of times. Something that was really big as a scope that didn't teach me that as much as dealing with the pressure of failure, of success, of talking with other people. And I tell that to this year, I tell that to a big shot, and she laughs. She says, how can that's preposterous. How can you learn anything in only, like, how can you compare like years and years of experience to 1 weekend? And she's right, but she's missing what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that you will become like a good developer with only a few hours. What I say is you will get to learn yourself, about yourself. And let me give you this example. After years and years of failure, both professionally and artistically, both alone and with other people, like things about artists and like scope, like after years and years of failure in a game jam that Miniclip did, the theme was space and coffee. It was a bit goofy. Everybody was doing goofy shit. And I compiled something that I was really, for the first time, proud of compiling. I made a game that was called Not Fail. So the game was, you are in a spaceship, and the spaceship leaves Earth. As you leave Earth in the spaceship, you see, do not fail. And now you're in space. And you have to manage resources. You have to go to another planet. Like, it's a metaphor. Fuel was energy, momentum was creativity, stuff like that. So it was a game in a game jam about games in game jams, or creativity in general. If you ran out of fuel or out of anything, you just stop and floated in space, which is sort of the feeling that you get when you fail. You were going somewhere and then nothing. I showed that to, like, in the game jam we had a roundup to show the games, and people were clapping very enthusiastically to every other game. When I showed mine, and because it was so personal, it's a bit weird, the game itself, it was awkward. People were very hesitant to clap, and they kind of clapped like they didn't. It was a game for me, right? And I knew that, like, why would I expect anything else? But it hurt. And that is the question, why would it hurt so much? Like, why, like, I didn't spend any time doing that. I spent the weekend. What is that? Like, and why would that hurt so much? And why, like, it was just random people that some that I met there. Why would I need so much claps or so much enthusiasm from them? Why would that hurt me? And let's get back to the note. So I made, and this part is about game jams. I made a game jam, a private game jam in my office, and we were like, I think 7 guys working on a game, and one of them says, I have to talk to you, and he talks to me in private, and he tells me, that game I was making, I stopped making it, I cannot make it anymore, and he shows me the notebook. He wrote on a notebook this note that I transcribed here. And again, why? Why would he need to write that to himself? Why would he even do a game and stop midway? Why would he even start that game? Why would he stop it? And why did he show it to me? Why me? So this is another episode. Last year I started doing 1 game per week. The idea was to do 1 per week for a full year. I was at a nightclub, and I had this idea. We were listening to retro music, and I told my girlfriend I have this huge idea, because retro music, like, how come retro music even exists? Like, if you see like time as a vector, it makes no sense, right? But time is not a vector, it's a cycle, right? Everything is cyclical. Like, chauvinism gives way to feminism, which gives way to chauvinism again. You have conservatism, liberalism, conservatism, like everything is a cycle. Like, people who are more spiritual, less spiritual. So I had this idea of you spawn into a world, and you only see part of it, and then you die. And then if you spawn again, and if you spawn enough times, you start seeing a pattern in the world, and you start seeing everything is cyclical. I saw time as a circle, and the game was a mountain. I was so pumped with it. I worked even more than 2 weeks on it. It was really amazing. And I show it to people. And again, they don't like it. And this time I'm really hurt. Really, really hurt. Why? And why would they even like it? I mean, it's very, but why did it hurt? Not why didn't they like it? Why did I even show it to them? And this is the final episode on that end, but I think like me talking about that, you might get familiar with that if you are making games. That happens, and I don't think it's only to me. I made my first game when I was studying civil engineering. The first code I ever compiled. I was having classes of C++, and it was the first time I actually get to understand code, and I fell in love. In that week, I just did code, and at one point I did tic-tac-toe in shell, and I showed it to my professor, and he says, no, it wasn't you, like, and it was insulting, and it could be like seen as a compliment, but it was an insult to me. Why? Again, why? Why would I even show that to him? So this guy, the guy who wrote this note, we were having coffee with a fellow designer. He also quit a thing that he was loving. Like he really was into a type of game that suddenly he just said, no, we are going to quit that. We were having a coffee and we were discussing how do you teach game design to students. And in my perspective, you cannot teach game design to anyone. Like formalism and everything, that's crap. Like how you can give a book to someone and suddenly he knows what is design. And what I was proposing is, instead of teaching game design, you teach to find your own voice. Like you go to the students and you say, what is the worst game, like the worst genre, the genre that you hate? It's that I hate walking simulators. Perfect. Do one. Have them do what they hate. So they understand why they hate it, and they are better at doing what they like. And it was, I don't know, like maybe that doesn't work, but this guy gets it. He understands, because he spent a year doing one game, and suddenly, like he writes to himself, he needs to write to himself. Playing within the rules is not a restriction, so why would he even try to play within the rules? So I'm back at the bus. We are going to Lisbon, and I asked to someone else, why do you make games? And the answer is a bit, it's a bit cliche. He even says that. He's a sound designer, and he says, I like systems. I really like systems and the beauty of the inherent beauty of systems. Systems, you can do so much with them. And I remember when I said I want to make games, it was when I played Neverwinter Nights. He says, I had no idea that I could express so much about myself within a system. The creative potential of a system is amazing. Okay, I think. So here's a bunch of definitions of, I'm sorry about the flashing, a bunch of definitions of games. So we have this is Chris Crawford. A lot of people like this, but like it's a bit clumsy, right? Like a lot of things that you'd call a game don't fit in the definition of games. It's very artificial, but one of the definitions I think are the most elegant is one by Thomas Grigg, which is one of the designers at Penumbra, and the idea is mostly that we have the system, which is this code, and the system is aesthetics, dynamics, and mechanics. If you are into game design and game dev, you know what that means. But maybe you don't understand the definition of narrative within Thomas Grigg's perspective. In Mario, for instance, he says, narrative is not you saving the princess. The narrative of Mario is you jumping and getting coins. So the narrative is actually what the player does within the game. And then within the two, something merges and comes as a third entity, which is the mental model. So the game is not that, it's the two together, and what the player thinks the game is. So the schema, the affordance, the mindscape. And this is problematic. Even if it's elegant, it makes no sense. Here's why. When you read a book, it's not a thing. Right? You read Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones recollects the events that happen in the universe. When you play Skyrim, it's not a recollection of events, it's actually the events. So it's not something that happens within a universe, it's the universe itself. And if that is a game, which it kind of is, it's kind of real in a way within the virtuality. And if that exists in the player's mind, a question rises. Isn't the player part of the game? And so if you are creating a game and the player is part of the game, it's a piece of the game. How are you creating that? I'll delve more into that, but I'll let you think about that. Back to the bus. It was a bit like that, a bit darker. I ask a third person, and the person says an answer that you might find interesting. I don't want to make chairs. I was confused, but then I understood completely. He said, there's too many stuff in the world, a lot of things. Like, I would never be a chair builder, never. It's not because it's a boring job, because there's too many chairs already. There's a lot of things, but they have no purpose. What I want to build is not chairs, is how you sit. I want to build purpose. That is what I want to do. And this is why I make games. In games, you are not only making an object, you are guiding someone. And then I understood what he meant with that. Monopoly money. Me and my brother, we used to play a lot of board games. One of them was Monopoly. And at one point I asked a question, again, why? Which is a question that I will repeat a lot in this talk. My brother, as many of you might have experienced while playing this game, just gets frustrated and flips the board in the air. And I think money does that to people indeed. People become assholes because of money. But then I realize it's not money, it's just paper. Why would someone be an asshole because of paper? Why would someone be an asshole because of money as well? But it's just paper, it's not real money. So here's Davey, the guy from Stanley Parable. He made a game after that, which I think, like, it's a lot of things, but in a way it's a manifesto about why games are. I'll skip a few parts. And I think I have internet.
And while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today we're going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2012.
You can listen to anything, right?
We're
So
going to look at the games made by a friend of mine.
we're gonna skip that.
Now these games mean
But
a lot
let me
to me.
just give you some
I
context
met
before.
Kona in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling.
So this game is a documentary within a game about games someone else
I found
made.
it to be a good reference point for
So
the kinds of
in the
creative
first level,
works
which is
that
what
I
I'm
want to
showing,
make.
he shows
Just to start
the
you
game
off,
of someone
this is,
else.
I think the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around.
So it's a weird game, right? And at some point, and like there's narration, I will skip that because you cannot listen to it.
Like this one at the start.
So let me just kill the audio. He's showing a game that someone else might have made. and one of the reasons it's showing that is because in this game there's a huge tower and you climb the stairs, and then the game freezes you to a halt. You start becoming slower and slower and slower and slower, and then you stop. And then he says as a narrator, but I've cheated, like I'm modding game, and so you can go upstairs. So he kills the wall just in a few seconds, and you can go up, and then there you will find something. I will not show you that because I think it's spoilers, but this is another part of the game, another game that supposedly that person made, and it's showing that you have a puzzle and you get to the end of the level. I'm sorry, without the narration, it's a bit why I'm trying.
And so, we're gonna see it a lot.
The columns are a bit rubbish, I'm sorry. So then you get to dead ends, and the game finishes.
So that seems to be it, right? You walk down the corridor, solve the puzzle, get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
And then you see that in that game, there was something else. He removed the walls, like he modded the game.
How about that? There was more to it than we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the stairs game, the same.
Okay, never mind. So what is that like? He asks, if you're not supposed to see that as a player, what is your purpose as a player within that game? Because in that game, supposedly, the author would not show you all of that. So what is the game actually? Where does the game start and end? Is it the experience of the player? Is it in the player's mind? Is it the code? So Dreams in Black and White. So another project that I failed, and I'm sorry about the video, but never mind. Ask me later, I can give you the video, or the name of the game. Dreams in Black and White. I was making a game that was really bad in 2014, and the art style was rubbish. The code barely did any of the core loops. The design was absolutely butchered, and this was again a story of failure. But I'm gonna bring this episode to somewhere else. For the first time in my life, I got to know someone who dreamt in black and white, which was the artist. I thought it was an urban myth who dreams in black and white. I really thought, like, because I don't dream in black and white, and I started to develop an interest in how people dream. He said, I only dream in black and white. What do you mean? And so, gamers and lucid dreaming. When I was young, I played a lot of games, and I started seeing that people who played games, a lot of us, we had lucid dreaming. I don't know if you are familiar with the concept of it. It's you dreaming, and you know that you are dreaming within the dream. But I also started noticing, like the artists I work with, they focus a lot on details. Sometimes they even describe the dream as it's a movie. They describe the colors and the camera movement. And me, that I'm a programmer, I know that programmers, like in general, I'm not saying that, we tend to focus on function and form, not on the small details. Colorblind people used to I think, like from my experience, it's not established, but they dream in very vivid colors. So it makes sense that gamers lucid dream, right? Because they spend, like, you feed your subconscious whatever your daily life is. If you play a lot and you are used to, I am in this world, but I am also here, it's only natural that when you are dreaming, you know that you are dreaming, but you are also sleeping. And so let me give you a short description of another bus. This was a nightmare. and I was in a bus. I had to go somewhere. I leave the bus, and I'm run over by the bus, and I wake up. This is 3 dreams. In the second dream, I find the car and I go to the place I wanted to go, and then something really weird starts to happen, because it was weird because I was not lucid dreaming in that specific episode. I start seeing, I don't know if you are used to Unity, but I am, and like there's a difference between animation and moving through code, something. So if you are lerping in Fix Update, sometimes it's a bit gibberish, right? It's a bit jittery. And I was seeing the cars, as I was driving, I was seeing the cars like that, and I was like, shit, I'm getting insane while I was dreaming. This is not something in my eyes, this is not, I'm not dehydrated, this is an hallucination. Sorry?
You only see it 24 FPS.
Exactly, but only a few things. Only the cars, so I was getting insane. And then suddenly everything is voxel based. So 4 lanes become 3 lanes. I cannot control the speed I'm going at, and I know I'm going to die. I'm going to crush my car because, like, I have no idea where the cars actually are. I'm hallucinating, and I wake up. The third time was one of the most painful dreams I've ever had. I wake up, I get asleep, and I'm in a wheelchair. But that goes to show that in that month, those months, I was working as a freelancer in a game that was voxel based, and I knew it was going to fail, and still I insisted on working on that. And so what I was doing as a designer was influencing every single part of my brain. Another thing, as a player, not as a designer, I was really doing live action RPGs for a while, just to investigate. I don't know if it's the right word, but at one point I'm playing a character, and the character kicks someone, a friend of mine. Like, I kicked someone, and I realized I just kicked someone. Like, the character, I became the character so much that after kicking the person, I was like, fuck, what did I do? So, a game can be that as well. You can become so invested that it can infiltrate your mind. And we get back to my brother flipping a board. Why did he flip the Monopoly board? It's not because the money was money, it's because my brother entered the character, and at that time that paper was money, and this is why he was being an asshole. So let's talk a bit about Lizzie Maggie's The Landlord game. Do you know that game? You know. That's Monopoly. So that person wanted to make an anti-capitalistic game about how greed is bad. And all I can remember about that game, like, because games in a way are a life form as well, like they evolve and they become exactly what the player wants. It became something else. It became a celebration of greed in a way. So how could she even know that the game that she was designing to have a message would be played like a kid would flip the board because he was too greedy, which was absolutely the opposite of what she wanted. How can you even design a game? That is the thing. If the player is part of the game, how can you create, if you are the creator of the game, how can you create someone else's choices? How can you create how people relate to an object? So, somewhere in space, there's this answer in the bus. I asked someone else, and he says Call of Duty. Why do you make games? Call of Duty. That's a more interesting story. So he tells me this. A lot of people, like in talks, says, oh, you played like huge AAAs and shit, and maybe that's why you are into design. Like, maybe you played Call of Duty, and I laughed the first time I heard that, but actually, yeah, it was Call of Duty that made me want to make games. The first Call of Duty I remember at one of the best set pieces, he says, like ever. You go into a beach, I think, and then everything goes in slow motion, and the audio is very unsynchronized with the rest of the game. It's really like it's very experimental, and I was like, wow, you can do so much with that. This was one of the reasons I became a game designer. And after a while, like after a few years, I tried to revisit that level, and something weird happened. That section wasn't in the game. So what happened was that my PC was shit. And the frame rate absolutely butchered the game. And at that point I knew I want to make games because they are not one thing, they do not relate in one specific way, they do not exist in a specific, they are not defined by how you create it, how the player sees it. It's something else entirely. One of the lucid dreams I've been having, because I don't remember my dreams that much, is me doing work when I go to sleep. So I spend most of my time programming when I'm awake, and when I dream I spend most of my time programming as well. But not in a language, not in a program, like not with an interface. I know I am dreaming, and I try to fix the world. So I try to fix a chair, the function of a chair. I try to fix, you know, those stupid neighborhoods that all the stop signs make no sense, and you go and say like that in my dreams, that is my job. And so I'm sleeping with my girlfriend, and I wake her up and I'm saying, sorry, as I'm sleeping, the UX is completely fucked up, I'm really sorry. And the next morning she asks me, what the fuck was that about? And I'm like, it's really hard to explain, but like I knew the sheet wasn't enough for us to be covered, so I was trying to resize the sheet. And because I knew I was dreaming, and she says, so essentially what you do every night is you dream that you are God. And I'm like, no, it's not like, oh shit. Why? And that is, if the two things are so related, that is a window. Like, why do I actually make games? Why do I want to make games? Is it a feeling of powerlessness? Is it because I want to control it? Like, that gets you thinking, why do you actually make that? And again, I did, as I said, I did one game every week for a year, and I got to the end of that year and I stopped making those. I have 4 weeks still to finish, and I just left it. So in the beginning, why did I even start doing it? And why was I satisfied with it? Like, what the fuck is that about? And those are questions that you are confused, but I'm confused as well. So what is Stack Overflow? I spoke about recurrence. Recurrence is the idea, again, of a box within a box, or a room that leads to a room. And Stack Overflow is an error that happens when you are in an infinite loop. Sometimes it happens because of that. So imagine that you open this door and you get to this room again, and you open and you open and you open and you run in circles. So that's what a machine does when they accuse Stack Overflow. You don't finish your task. And that happens with people as well. I have a friend that's a painter, and those questions about why do we make games, it's something that it's not only, I don't ask only to people who make games, I ask to other people. And there's something like I usually ask, which is, if you are the last person on earth, would you still make art? And some people say yes, some people say no. Because some people make art for themselves and people make art for others. But the thing is, that other person, when you are painting or making a game, she's not there, the person is not there. You're not making that to anyone, that person is imaginary. That person exists in your head. And so when you are painting or writing a book or anything else, you have a breaking point, because it's not an interactable thing. But when you are making a game and someone imaginary in your head is playing with the game that is also in your head and is interactive, like when your head eats itself and is interactive with itself, you have a problem of recurrence. It's an infinite loop. And while you can become your work when you are an artist in anything else, there's a breaking point. You can stop there. With games, and this is why so many people are broken, in my opinion, the work can become you and you can become your work. Like there's no breaking point, because again, it doesn't finish. It can eat you up to the limit. So you have to remember that it's all bullshit. That really, like, that's the same with lucid dreaming. You have to remember that you are dreaming and that you can wake up. Everything is bullshit. The player is bullshit. What you think you know about game design is bullshit. What you think about yourself is bullshit. The sales are bullshit. The reasons you say this game failed, this game was success is bullshit. Failure itself is bullshit. Like success is bullshit. Everything is bullshit. And that's true for anything, like in life, but specifically in games, because it can eat you so much. You have to realize at one point, it's just, I'm gonna stop there. I'm having a breaking point. You observe. It needs to be a lucid dream. So the last person I asked in the bus, why do you make games? The person said, I don't really know. I mean, I'm not sure, and I'm working on a game that is self-financing. I'm not even sure that that's the game I want to make, and I'm not even sure that's what I want to do in life. But that's okay. And that concludes the talk. Time to comments or something like that, and it's really hot in here, so no, but if you want to, okay, shoot. 1 minute, okay. So if you guys want to say, ask me anything, like we can meet outside. If you want to add me on social media.
I'm next. I don't need all my time. You can take.
You have 2 slides.